Well, the U.S. presidential election is generating a lot of interest in Canada, especially with politicians. And the lessons learned south of the border could come in handy here at home with a possible election on the way. Word on the Hill is that we could be heading to the polls as early as October. Allan Bonner is a Canadian political consultant who is at this week's historic Democratic Convention. Allan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Pleasure.
Let me ask you a question. As a viewer, leaving aside that I'm a journalist, as a viewer, I was glued to the television set when the Democratic Convention was going on. How are they able to generate so much hype and so much buzz over something that's, you know, just a matter of process when you boil it down?
Well, that is the story. There are so many things that you can fake in politics. You can hand out signs, but you can't make people wave them. You can build in applause lines, but you can't make people clap more than 12 times. You can bus in a lot of rent-a-people, but you can't fill a stadium with 84,000 people. The way Obama is raising money, who he's raising money from, the number of email addresses he has, you can't buy an Obama t-shirt without giving them your email address for future reference. So politics is changing. It's now stadium politics.
You know, it's interesting because many people are saying Obama is a bigger celebrity than many of the Hollywood celebrities that we see. We see at the Democratic Convention, Sheryl Crow was there. There were some big names that were there out to support him. Is this sort of the next step in the celebritization of American politics?
Well, there's power, there's money, there's celebrity, and power usually trumps money and celebrity. So he is a new phenomenon. Now, we have to remember, we've been kind of here before with JFK, with FDR to a certain extent, with William Jennings Bryan in 1896.
Even Reagan with you know, his Hollywood history.
Yes, indeed. So, but there is something new happening, and it is the structural approach to politics. The left and the center left in America lost the battle in the 60s. It was Nixon who won the 68 election. What they didn't do, and the reason they lost, is they didn't have a structural and institutional approach to politics. They got it now, and it's a sight to behold.
Now, the indication is that within the span of the next 10 weeks, we'll have a Canadian election and an American election. And I'm sure there are Canadian election pundits right now that are taking down notes of what the Republicans and the Democrats are doing. What should Canadian politicians be learning from what's happening right now in the United States?
Well, they should be very, very cautious about trying to translate anything that goes on in America to Canada. We have such a different electoral system. The money is different. An American president will spend $100 million becoming president. A Canadian prime minister spends $1 million becoming the leader of the party. A senator or a governor will spend $30 million. One of our MPs spends $100,000. So the way the money is raised and spent, the use of television, etc., it just does not translate. What does is how much an American politician practices. An American president will spend 12 hours practicing his or her State of the Union address. The people who you didn't even see on TV, John Kerry and so on, they would have spent dozens of hours practicing their speeches with teleprompters. Canadian politicians don't practice enough their communication skills. We raise better debaters because they stand 2 outstretched arms and 2 sword lengths apart in the House of Commons or the provincial parliaments, debating each other as part of their job description. An American senator is talking to nobody. There's nobody there. A couple of tourists, a couple of journalists, and a couple of pages, and they become very boring speakers like John Kerry. Now,
you mentioned earlier that the hype that we saw in Denver is not something that money could buy. That's something that's genuine and that's real. Is there any way, in your analysis, in your opinion, that that kind of hype could be generated here for a Canadian election? And I'm not talking about the amount of money that goes into it, but just that kind of, you know, people jumping into a movement, something that we see like we see right now with Obama south of the border.
Well, it's happened a couple of times in our lifetime. I mean, I think Laurier came close, Diefenbaker certainly did it, and Trudeau did it. But we don't vote as directly for our leaders as Americans do. Americans don't vote directly, they go through the Electoral College, but it's closer. So I think the electorate is looking for involvement, and I think public policy is exciting. And leadership may even be a public policy phenomenon. It's not happening in the corporations of the world. So maybe.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us today. I'm sure that you, along with so many other people, will be keeping such a close eye on this because it's certainly shaping up to be a very exciting few weeks
you bet.
in the weeks ahead. Thank you.
Bet.